It's me, James. Happy Monday to you. I'm going to go ahead and film this week's Oracle Outlook video reading. This is Monday, February the 24th as I'm filming this. And the deck that I'm going to be using is a variation of the deck that I used last week. If you watched last week's video, then you may recall that I used my deck, the Mitchell Playing Card Tarot. So this week I'm going to be working with a variation of it. This one is called the Mitchell Tarot Playing Cards. This is a combination of my, up to now, my most popular deck. I sell some of the decks that I make, and this is my most popular one. It is the Mitchell Cartomancy Playing Cards. I made this about a year ago, and it is a deck of scenic playing cards, which means that every card in the deck has an image on it. I was inspired by some viewers who watch my art and study and practice of cartomancy with playing cards. It's a video series I've been doing for the last few years now. And one of the comments I got over time with that video series is about memorization of the playing cards. And so that kind of just got my brain, my creative brain, ticking, thinking about that. And I thought about creating a deck of scenic playing cards to maybe help jumpstart people's intuition. And so kind of helping reduce the idea of memorization. And so I wanted to expand on that because I wanted to honor the dream in which I found a deck of tarot and playing cards mixed together. I talked about that dream in last week's video as well. And so I took the cartomancy cards and created some tarot cards, major arcana cards from the tarot, and produced this deck. So that is the story behind the deck. If you are interested in the Mitchell Cartomancy cards, I will post a link in the description box below that will take you to my Make Playing Cards marketplace site, and you can get more information about that. I also have a dedicated page on my website, which I will link as well, because if you order and purchase the deck, if you go to the page on my site, you can download the PDF guidebook that goes with the deck. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's go ahead and shuffle the cards. And as I do for each of these weekly general readings, I shuffle with the intention of having the cards provide the information, the insight, the guidance that is going to be most helpful and beneficial as we move through the week. I sometimes also ask the cards to kind of just tell us the story that is unfolding potentially for the week as well. So I think I'll shuffle a combination of that or those intentions into the deck. So I usually shuffle 5 times, one for each of the elements. That's a part of my practice. So I believe this is the last shuffle. And it is. When the cards act like they don't want to go back together, that is the last shuffle. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and cut the deck. Now I'm going to go ahead and fan the cards out. And then I look for 5 cards in the fan that are getting my attention, because I usually work with what's called a line of 5. So here we have the 5 cards. Now I'm going to go ahead and pick the remainder of the deck up. And we'll move that to one side. Now I'm going to spread out the line in the order that the cards were selected. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so when I work with a line of 5, with my decks, my tarot decks, my playing card decks, I usually have positional meanings, as I've talked about in previous videos. But if you're new here, first card is going to be the origin. Second card will be our expectations, what we could possibly expect over the course of the week. Third card is the heart of the matter, the central issue, the focus, also known as hidden influences. Fourth card is guidance or advice. And then the last card is the potential outcome. Okay, so now coming back to the first card, the origin card, for the week ahead, we have Temperance. Okay, so now Temperance is a major arcana card. So when a line starts off with a major arcana card, it suggests that there is an important issue or event unfolding. Remember, this is the position of the origin. So this card can represent an unfolding situation or why we are asking the question that we are asking, right? If it's a more specific type of question, right? Mine was more general, but if it was a more specific type of question, why are we asking that particular question? Okay, so now some thoughts on the Temperance card. So for me, the Temperance card can be about balance. It can be about patience. In the image, I have a mixologist mixing drinks, right? So this card can also be about, experimentation, testing things out, trial and error, things of that nature, right? So in some contexts, this can be about what are we experimenting with this week, right? As the week unfolds, that would suggest possibly the introduction of a new theory, concept, condition, circumstance, situation that we are moving through, and so we are testing things out. This is kind of like I'm dipping my toes in the water, kind of thing, getting my feet wet, getting a feel for the situation. Those are all metaphors for, moving through a new experience and just kind of getting a feel for it, right? For some people, this could be having to do with trying to think of different life circumstances to put this in. Okay, if it's a relationship context, let's say, okay, this could be about the art of compromise. This is a card that represents compromise in a relationship context with me, and it doesn't matter the type of relationship, right? It could be a working relationship, it could be a familial relationship, it could be a friendship status relationship, it could be a romantic, intimate relationship, but there's some level of compromise. And so that could mean, with the Temperance card, not going to extremes, right? So this card can be about, the middle of two extremes, right? So it could be that. It could also be about people still in a relationship context where people are kind of feeling their way through a relationship dynamic where the people involved come from two different types of backgrounds. So it could be like different racial backgrounds, different ethnicity backgrounds, different religious or spiritual backgrounds, and they're trying to come to some middle ground or some common ground in the relationship, right? So there is that. And that would be where the level of compromise comes in, right? So there is that. If it's having to do with healing, this is a healing card, then it could be trying out different types of healing modalities. For instance, back in, I want to say 2004, I experienced what's known as Bell's palsy. So that is a type of facial paralysis, yeah? And so I experienced that. And so I went through the Western medicine route. And, I had an MRI done. I had a CAT scan done to rule out a brain tumor, right? Pressing on the cranial nerve that regulates the right side of my face, which was the side that was paralyzed. Okay, ruled all of that out. And then took the medication that was prescribed and didn't see any results. I was one of those rare cases, it's rare, that didn't see any results in like a few weeks' time. Okay, so went through the Western medicine route, and then I was recommended to see an acupuncturist. And I am back. I am so sorry. Once again, I forgot to turn my phone off once I started filming, and of course, the phone rang. So I had to attend to that, but I am back. And so, where did I leave off my story? Oh, yeah. So I left off in my Bell's palsy, story about seeing an acupuncturist, right? An acupuncturist was recommended, and that is where I experienced the most progress in terms of recovery, was seeing the acupuncturist. And so, as a result of that, I learned that the temperance card, keeping this back to the card, can be, in terms of healing modalities, a combination of Western medicine and Eastern or alternative modalities, complementing each other, right? As a complementary thing, right? Not saying one is better than the other, right? Because this is where my disclaimer comes in. I am not a medical practitioner or professional. So, I'm always saying, like, if you're experiencing something, first and foremost, see your primary care practitioner, right? And let them recommend something else to you. But in my particular case, it was a combination of the Western approach to medicine and the Eastern approach to healing, where I experienced the most recovery through that Bell's palsy experience. So, all that to say is, if there is something having to do with health and healing, then it may be a need to explore both the Western and the Eastern forms of medicine and healing, right? And modalities, right? Also, too, keeping along with the health and wellness aspect of the card, this card can be about food and beverages, again, because she is mixing drinks. So for some people, it may be about moderation in terms of your diet. Again, I am not a nutritionist or a holistic health practitioner in that regard. So again, see the people that you need to see if you're going to make those kinds of changes to your diet, right? But this card can represent a change in diet, but it's due to moderation. Watching your food, watching your beverages, that kind of thing. But yeah, so it could be like trying different things out with regard to your diet. So again, I'm just going to run down here the issues in my head. So again, with the relationship aspect, this is about compromise, but it's about reaching a compromise between individuals of different backgrounds, whether it's race, ethnicity, religion, or spiritual paths or traditions. With healing, it could be about, trying different things as a complement to Western and Eastern medical and health practices. With diet, it's about moderation, watching your intake of certain foods and beverages, things like that. I'm going to go back to the healing modality for a moment. This card can also be about, energy healing. I am a Reiki practitioner, so for me, this can come up around those types of healing modalities. Reiki is just one of them that is out there, but it could be about that and becoming more adept in that, right? Immersing yourself more into that particular practice. And if you're a spiritual person, spiritually minded, the last thing I will say about this card, the reason for all the blue, is that this is also a nod to the blue angel, and that is Archangel Michael. So this card can represent Archangel Michael. Some other angels that I see in this card besides Archangel Michael. So first and foremost, if it represents Archangel Michael, so this could be about, protection, watching over yourself, that kind of thing. And it could be like protecting your energetic space. Yeah, if I bring it back to the energy aspect of the card, protecting your energetic space, right? And that would be where the compromise comes in, right? Compromising in terms of, your time alone, needing the need for your time alone, and the need to be around other people and meeting their needs. So it could be a matter of, compromise with that. Another angel is your guardian angel. So this could be about working on your connection, your bond, your relationship with your guardian angels. And then the last angel that I see with this card is Archangel Cassiel. I had an experience actually through a Reiki session where I was introduced to Archangel Cassiel, and I discovered that Archangel Cassiel, in doing my research after the session, is that Archangel Cassiel is tied to or associated with this idea of temperance, right? So it could be a matter of working with either your guardian angel more closely, working with Archangel Michael, or if you are going through a difficult time, because Archangel Cassiel is also known as the Angel of Tears, working with Archangel Cassiel and helping you heal through that particularly challenging emotional experience. Yeah. It would be, Cassiel is known as an observer angel, a watcher, and so that could just mean finding ways to step back, and so you can see the larger picture of the experience, right? Angels are known for offering us a different perspective on our human experience, our journey through the human condition. Yeah, so that's what I want to offer with the Temperance card. That was a lot. Okay, but again, Temperance is a major arcana card, and so those are important or significant events the card could want to share. Okay, so now moving on to the next position, our expectations. And here we have another major arcana card. And so this card showed up last week. This is the World, so it's making an appearance again. So as a pattern, we look for that, right? And so the World, as I talked about last week, is about the successful completion of a cycle, right? And so this could just represent taking a look back at last week's events in your life, or in the bigger perspective, the world, right? Any global issues, any issues that involved more than one person, right? A collective or a community. Then it could be about how did those resolve itself, how did they end, that kind of thing. Again, this could also be about higher levels of awareness. It could be about career. I talked about that last week, and in terms of, people retiring or leaving their careers, maybe exploring. This would be another aspect of this, testing out the waters of a new career. So could be mentioning that. Could be, again, a nod to spiritual practitioners, because I talked about this in the context of Reiki practitioners or energy healers, things of that nature. It could also be people who work in the sciences. This is known as the Arts and Sciences card, so maybe there's a change or shift in careers regarding the arts and the sciences, right? Here we could have, in terms of sciences, we could have like chemists, biologists, any type of science-oriented field, right? And there could be something going on in those particular things, maybe in the larger worldly, global sense, right? But now this could also be about compromise with people in different parts of the world, right? Remember, I talked about this in a relationship context in terms of either people of different races, people of different ethnicities, right? There's something about the dynamics of the people involved that are diverse, right? And it's about, coming somewhere in the middle. So this could be people in different parts of the world coming to some sort of compromise regarding an issue. Right, and it may be, instituting a new policy, procedure, something in which they have to kind of test it out, or it's trial and error, or something about that I'm seeing with that. But that the World, again, is about the successful completion of a cycle or a chapter. So we may be expecting something to be completed, and it's to our benefit, to our success, right? So there's something about that as well we need to kind of just take a look at. Asking what else do I need to say about this. I may come back to the World, but that's what's coming to me in the moment. Okay, so now let's move on to the third card here. Okay, so now here at the heart of the matter, no pun intended, we have the Ten of Hearts. This for me is a card that can talk about, a larger venue, a gathering of people. So it would make sense coming after the World, where I talked about something on a larger scale, right? In terms of community, right? this card is kind of the same thing. Um, this card also too is about the successful completion of a cycle. Then with the 10 of hearts coming after it, it's about feeling successful, right? Hearts is the suit of feelings and emotions, and then the number 10 is a number of success, right? And it's also a number of endings. So here at the conclusion of something or the ending of something, we feel a level of success with that, or we are feeling more successful as a result of that completion, right? In the image, I'll hold the card up so you can see the image. In the image, there is a concert taking place, and so this card can talk about venues or events where a large group or a large audience of people are gathered together, right? So a concert is one form of that. Now going with the musician on the stage, he's standing on a stage, so this could represent a certain stage or level of progress, right? And that would be the world card. Remember, the world card can also be about travel in the literal or metaphorical sense. So I'm going to go metaphorically here. So it would be about making progress and then feeling a level of success with the progress we have made as we prepare for the next stage in our growth and development. So there is that. And then, of course, with the musician standing with a microphone in hand, this could be about your voice. What do you have to say? Or voice is being amplified. Right now, I'm thinking in my place in the world, I'm in the United States, and there are people who are speaking up or speaking out about what is going on. And this is more of a political thing, so I won't go into that too much, but there are movements taking place in different parts of the United States where people are becoming more vocal, right? Their voices are becoming amplified, right? That's all an acknowledgement of the microphone symbology in the card, right? So there is that, but I'm seeing this as, you know, opportunities for people, large groups of people to get together, to have their voices heard, right? So there is that. Now, the only other thing I will say as I put the card down, I talked about people in relationship reaching compromise. So now this may be more of a personal type relationship. So this card is known as the marriage partner card, right? So here we have maybe with temperance, if I mirror these two cards, here we have maybe compromise between people who are married partners. And that could be, or, you know, people who have had a long-term relationships or in long-term relationships. It makes me think of the idea of like common law marriage, right? As well, you know. So it could just be people who have been together for long periods of time, but this could be, you know, representing a marriage partner. And so in that context, it would be about, you know, the way that compromise works is that both parties in the relationship are heard, right? So, you know, it's about really paying attention to what your partner is saying and then be willing to come to some level of compromise in the relationship. Okay? So there is that. So I think that's what I want to say about the Ten of Hearts for now. So let's move on to guidance or advice. Okay, so a lot of hearts. Okay, so now this card is the Jack of Hearts. So we have two majors and then we have two hearts. So right now, as the ruling majority, if you will, we have two things going on. Number one, with the majors, we have important issues that are unfolding potentially. We have some lessons or principles that are going to be learned through those experiences that are unfolding. There may be some level of things that are, you know, beyond our control, especially those that involve other people outside of ourselves. Okay, so that's these two cards. Then the hearts. Hearts are about our feelings, our emotions. They're also about healing. I talked about that with temperance. They're also about the way we relate to other people. So again, feelings, emotions, relationships, the way we choose to relate to other people or with other people, and then healing. Okay, so that's a nice segue into the guidance or advice card. So now, this might be triggering for some people, and if so, I do apologize. This is known as the Christ card. So I chose an image of the Christ for it. And so it could mean a couple of things. Number one, if we're choosing to relate to people, then this might be offering the idea of the Christ demonstration or example, meaning that, for me anyway, that Christ was a person who did two things. First and foremost, taught us how to have a relationship with the divine of our understanding, right? That's the first thing. But also as a teacher, that Jesus, the Christ, talked about love, right? And how could we love one another? And so I'm going to put the card down for a moment. And so this is a nice way to come back to the temperance card. Remember, I started off talking about people of different ethnicities, racial backgrounds, spiritual backgrounds, religious backgrounds. Then with the world card, people in different parts of the world, different types of communities. Then this card is about how can we love one another, and that is really, or can be, a challenge in these times that we are living in right now. Again, I'm talking about this from the perspective of being a person who lives in the United States at this point in time, right? There is a lot of division, a lot of polarity, a lot of duality going on right now as part of the human condition or the human journey, right? And so the Christ card could be asking us to take a look at that, and it may be about our love walk, our love demonstration, those kinds of things. I also believe that the Christ example or the Christ demonstration was about, being tolerant, being merciful, things like that. Also, too, now when this card comes up, this card is about being willing to make a sacrifice. So that is another, if the idea of what I was just talking about, as Jesus being a religious or spiritual figure, and as such being also very polarizing, right? There are people who embrace Christ in that way, and then people who are repelled, and I will honestly acknowledge that. People who are repelled by the Christ demonstration or the Christ example due to religious trauma, yeah? So as a result, can be a very polarizing figure in and of himself. So I'm going to suggest that it can represent how can we move through our feelings with polarizing figures, yeah? Not the Christ, but as a symbol of polarizing figures, right? So how can we move through our feelings and emotions regarding those people, right? And it's really about taking a look at what they trigger within you and how can you heal that, right? So maybe that's a way of looking at that could be helpful, right? But in certain situations, conditions, circumstances, this card is offering the idea of making a sacrifice, and the sacrifice will be voluntary on your part, right? So there is that. Again, this could be about taking a look at our demonstrations. How can we practice being more loving, being more tolerant, being more merciful in certain circumstances, right? It could also be about how can we move through our feelings with polarizing figures this week, especially maybe those that are in different parts of the world, right? That kind of thing. Or maybe in regards to maybe certain foreign situations, if you live in a different part of the world and you're looking at what's going on in another part of the world, right? All those kinds of things. And then the other thing I didn't mention too, this could be for people who are spiritual practitioners, right? Going back to the world and the temperance card, this could be about people who are either spiritual teachers or spiritual healers, right? Because Christ was also a spiritual healer and a spiritual teacher, and maybe even spiritual leadership. That's with the Christ card as well, right? And then the other thing I will say, I'm noting the crown on the head of Jesus and the light here at the world, or on the world card. That those are puns for the crown chakra. So this could be about higher levels of awareness, energy downloads, ahas, insights, epiphanies, things like that as well. Those kind of ideas coming in, right? So that's what I'm seeing with the Jack of Hearts. And then the last card is the outcome. And here we have, oh, wow, you cannot make this stuff up. So here we have the Hanged Man. So we have 3 cards from the major arcana. So now definitely the ruling majority, like we had last week, right? So again, important issues and events coming to the forefront, lessons, principles at work. Again, things that maybe are beyond our control in terms of influences, right? External influences, right? So now the Hanged One, I call it the Hanged One instead of the Hanged Man. And here we have the image of a young boy hanging upside down from a tree limb, right? And so this idea here with just that as a metaphor is about, a change in outlook, a change in perspective, right? When you're hanging upside down, the world looks very much or very different than it would if you were standing on your feet. So this card can symbolize a change in outlook. Now, coming right after the Jack of Hearts, the Christ card, then this card also offers the idea about a voluntary sacrifice being made. It carries some of the same meanings or interpretations as this card, right? So this card can be about voluntary sacrifice. It can also be about a certain level of awareness, because in the traditional image, the Hanged Man has a nimbus, and that's a nice word for a halo of light around his head. So that's about not just a change in outlook, but a change in outlook that produces an aha, a revelation, an epiphany, right? A change in awareness, right? So now it could also be about, working through issues around, here we have with these 2 cards, issues around a sense of betrayal or feeling betrayed, right? Because in some circumstances, or in part of the story of the Christ, that Christ was betrayed, right? So these 2 cards can also represent betrayal, right? And I would only say that when the Hanged Man comes up, because this card can represent the traitor. So here we have a card that represents Jesus the Christ, and then here we have a card that represents Judas Iscariot, who betrayed the Christ. So that's where that whole idea about betrayal comes in. It's about feeling betrayed, right? And then again, working through that. Now, at the end here, we have a very interesting dichotomy. Here we have this about progress and feeling successful. And then with the Hanged One, or the Hanging One, we have a possibility of, something being in limbo, right? So this card can be about something about suspension or suspended activity, something being put on hold, something in limbo, or some kind of setback or delay, or even reversal of something, right? So it would be interesting to see how maybe it starts off trial and error, and it looks like it could be potentially successful, but then there's a hang up, or there's some sort of limbo status or suspended status with that, or some sort of reversal or setback or delay, right? So there is that as well. And then the Hanging One can also talk about working through our hang-ups. Yeah, that's where I wanted to go. So it could be like asking yourself the bigger question: what are you hung up on? What are you hung up about? And how can you move yourself through that, right? Here with this card too, it can be about, letting go of the past, especially if you're hung up on the past, about letting go of the past. And then it brings me back to this card where I talked about compromise, not going to extremes. Where can you meet in the middle, that kind of thing. And then that may be about, working through a hang up, but having something to do with the past, right? And then the other thing I will say with these 2 cards, and I'll end on this note, it's about not letting other people, quote unquote, crucify you, or not being like a martyr. It may be about you finding a way to get yourself down off that metaphorical cross, either that other people are wanting to put you on, or that you have put yourself on. And it's about coming down off of that, right? So that's a metaphor for our cross to bear, right? And so maybe taking a look at, what are you allowing to be your quote unquote cross to bear, and would you be willing to remove yourself from that? And on that note, I will end this week's Oracle Outlook video reading here. If you made it to this point in the video with me, first and foremost, thank you for giving me the gift of your time as I made my way through the interruption of the phone call and all of those things. I appreciate the gift of your time, and I look forward to seeing you again in this space as we experience another Oracle Outlook video reading together. So until then, I hope you have a great day. I hope you have the best week possible, and take care.